So today I have some exciting news to share with you guys. Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel for another video. If you're new here, I'm Aisha. If you enjoy content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos. So in my last video, I upgraded my fuel tank to an FCS fuel cell. Now I'm ready to continue on that project by redoing my entire fuel system. So today I have some exciting news to share with you guys. I have partnered with Radium Engineering to complete my project on my new fuel system. So today I kind of just wanted to give you guys an overview of the parts that I'll be using and how they all work together. So if you guys watched my last video, you would have seen that I just installed the FCS race fuel cell. With the FCS fuel cell, now I have to run an external fuel pump. So in this process of trying to figure out how to mount up this fuel pump and the parts to use, I started doing research on parts and I came across one part that I really wanted to incorporate into my fuel system. And that one part led into just about every single part in my fuel system now going to be Radium Engineering. So here is my box of Radium Engineering parts, and I also have another box over here with some miscellaneous parts that I'm gonna go over with you guys today. All right, here we go. Of course there has to be stickers. This is really cool though. Where to start? All right, so I'm gonna start with that one part that I was telling you guys about. So this is a fuel pulse damper. Surprisingly, a lot of OEM cars actually have one of these from the factory. Like myself, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people out there, it's almost one of the top of the list of things that get eliminated once you start upgrading your fuel system. In most 90s generation Civics, the fuel pulse damper is usually on the end of the fuel rail, and it looks like a gigantic bolt, which I feel like a lot of people might actually think that it's just a bolt, but it actually serves a purpose. So the purpose of a fuel pulse damper is to absorb the pulses in a fuel system. So injectors, when they open and close, they have pulses and they send basically like shock waves in the fuel system, which can disrupt the pattern of the fuel flow. It can cause erratic fuel pressure, stuttering, and other things like that. There can also be spots in your tuning that the tuner cannot tune out. I've heard of even crazy things where you can hear like the noise throughout the fuel system, like in the lines, if the lines touch the body of the car. So this fuel pulse damper actually has a couple different versions. They have an inline version. This one is what's called a direct mount, which means that it directly mounts to the fuel rail. Of course, I had to get the fuel rail. So they make fuel rails for B series and for K series. And I honestly did not even know that. I was so excited when I saw that they made one for B series. The market now is all about K series, so to find a nice B series part is kind of rare these days. So I was really excited when I saw this. So usually with fuel rails, you have the two large ports on the two ends. But what's really cool about this fuel rail is that it also has a large 8AN orb port on the top of the fuel rail. So that's 3 of these large 8AN orb ports. It also has the normal mounting point where you could mount a stock type of fuel pressure regulator. This hole here is also threaded. One end has to be the feed. So if you use this as a feed, you can mount the fuel pulse damper on one end, leading on to other parts. This is their direct mount fuel pressure regulator. This fuel pressure regulator actually comes with another orifice. The one that is Pre-installed is good for up to 900 lph, which is liters per hour. This also comes with this gold colored one in here, and the gold colored one is good for up to 1500 lph. So with this fuel pressure regulator, you have a lot of possibilities. You can use this for a stock car to probably a car that makes more than 1,000 horsepower. What's really cool here, it includes Radium Engineering's swivel fittings to install it to the fuel rail. When you install it into the fuel rail, you can swivel it so that it can face whatever direction you need it to face. So if you want it installed like this, if you want it like that, whatever direction you want this installed in, you can, because it is a swivel fitting. The outlet is a 90-degree swivel fitting. So whatever direction you need for this to face in order to install your lines, you have the option. Here is their fuel pressure gauge. And so now with this fuel rail like this, I have the option with this that I could install it here because this port is threaded. I could also install it on the side of the fuel pressure regulator, or I could put it on this side. All these extra ports can be blocked off. So now you really have the choice of like where you want to put it. You can also put the fuel pressure regulator in this spot and the fuel pulse damper in this spot. You can really like switch around and put the parts wherever you want them, because all of these ports are the 8AN ORB ports. There is an adapter that goes from the 1/8 NPT to the 8AN orb fitting. So if you were running a stock style fuel pressure regulator, you could also install this gauge in this port. So there's a lot of possibilities with this fuel rail. Something that I wanted to mention about Radium Engineering, I'm really big on installation instructions, because the people that make these parts, when they come out with installation instructions, they know exactly what they're talking about because they're the ones that made the parts, right? Radium Engineering has a huge catalog of installation instructions, and even down to dimensions of the products. On each of the product pages, they list parts that work with the part that you're looking at. This is one of the fuel filters. I'm going to be running two of their fuel filters. One is going to be a pre-pump, which is before the fuel pump, and then the other one is going to be after the fuel pump. They both look exactly the same. This is a 10 microns, so this is going to be the one that goes after the pump. The one that goes before the pump is 100 microns. Basically, these fuel filters have an element inside that you can take this apart and clean them out, so they are reusable. I'm going to be running an external pump, which with the fuel cell, you have to run an external pump. So I'm going to be using the popular Bosch 044 pump, which is an inline external pump. So basically, there's going to be one fuel filter before the pump and one fuel filter after the pump. The way that that works is you usually put the higher microns as the pre-pump, which goes before the pump, and then the lower microns after the pump to filter out all of the smaller particles. So one thing that I wanted to talk about here is the selection in hose that I will be going with. I don't know how many of you know, but I use E85. The E85 is really harsh with your normal rubber hoses. The inside of the hoses become gummy and they start to deteriorate, and the gumminess can get into your injectors and clog them up. This time around, since I'm redoing everything, I am going with what's called PTFE hose. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically Teflon hose, and it's basically resistant to E85, methanol, and all of your other alcohol-based fuels. This stuff I will be fully going into when I am installing. Just to give you guys a heads up, if you're planning on using any of this PTFE hose, they have their own set of fittings. So you cannot use a regular AN fitting on this type of hose. This is a 90-degree fitting, right? And on the inside of the fitting here, it has what's called an olive. This olive basically gets crushed in here when you are installing these fittings. So if you plan on reusing a fitting, then you would have to purchase another olive. So make sure that you guys stay tuned for future videos when I will be doing this hose. Yes, it is a different method of installation. So towards the end of figuring out what parts I wanted to use in my new fuel system here, there was one part that I was on the fence about because I really wanted to incorporate it into my fuel system, but I had to figure out how, which is going to be pretty interesting. This is one part that I'm really excited about. Not that I'm not excited for all the other parts, but this one is pretty special. I have been looking at these surge tanks for years now, actually, and I really was trying to figure out how I would be able to incorporate this into my system, simply because my car is not gutted, it's full interior, and trying to figure out a spot where I was going to put this was almost the hardest part. A lot of research and diagram drawing and planning has gone into this whole fuel setup. It really started off as being something simple. The more and more that I did research and read into Radium Engineering's offerings, I actually spoke with their tech support, which their tech support is one of the best tech supports. They are very informative. The gentleman that I spoke to, he actually was the one that helped me to finally decide what I wanted to do. I had a different plan where I was going to run 2 of the Bosch 044 pumps, and after really researching and looking into it, the pump that I was using in my stock fuel tank, which was the Hellcat pump, is one of the better pumps out there that can produce that much LPH, or liters per hour. So the plan is to put the Hellcat pump in this surge tank, and the Bosch 044 pump is basically going to be what's called a lift pump to get the fuel to the surge tank. So make sure that you guys stay tuned for the future videos. I will explain all of the detail in the installation videos. In that install video, I will be opening this so that you can see inside, and I will be installing the fuel pump into this. Besides those main parts that I've just showed you, I do have a bunch of other miscellaneous parts like the fittings and little brackets. I also wanted to point out that in the future videos, I will be doing wiring. A lot of people have actually requested for me to do a video on how to wire up a fuel pump relay. And so now that I'm going to be doing this, I actually have to wire up 2 fuel pump relays because I will have 2 fuel pumps. I am going to end the video here because all of the other detail will be in the future videos. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure that you guys are subscribed, hit that bell icon so you get the notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.